Super Bowl 58 radio rolling on here. You know this voice, you know this face. He called, I believe, 5 Broncos games, including one on the radio this year.
I love the Broncos,
Yes.
and I was sorry to see how the season ended. The last game we did was in Detroit on that Saturday night. That was a tough one.
Yes.
Because that could have spun things so many different ways, right? But I also did a couple years ago when Drew Locke was your quarterback, and they had that little run, and he played well. They had that big win in Houston. Remember that game?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. No, and there was a lot, and now he's up in Seattle and trying to carve his career up there. But no, even though I'm in Kansas City and used to do the Chiefs, I've always been a Bronco fan and still am.
That's saying a lot. You're in Kansas City, former Chiefs voice. Also, family connections to the Green Bay Packers through your father, Bob. So this is Kevin Harlan, of course. If you're a Nuggets fan, you know him as well, but we're going to get to
I just
that.
did the Nuggets last night.
That's the thing. You were in L.A. last night.
Yes.
Did you fly up here or did you drive?
No, I flew.
Okay.
I flew, and boy, that Michael Malone is doing a good job. And the Nuggets do not blink. I know we're talking football, but
No, we're talking everything. Nuggets are relevant in Denver, so we're talking all
my
of it.
gosh.
Yes.
I mean, defending champs, but they play like a defending champion. And Jamal was terrific, and Jokic is just, there's no way to describe what he does and how he does it. But man, am I a fan of that basketball team, and they looked good last night again.
How does the fact that they won it last year, you've done 3 of their games this season, but the fact that they won it last year, how has that helped them mature in situations they're facing, kind of like the ones that they had last night?
They're steely and they're resilient, and like you say, they've been down that road before. Michael Malone told us a great story last night. He said, sometimes we can forget that we're the defending champions, and DeAndre Jordan, before we go out, he'll look at everybody, say, remember, we are the champions. We're the defending champions of the NBA. They're chasing us. We're not chasing them. And sometimes you got to tell yourself that, because it's a long season. There are a lot of games, a lot of travel, and the message can get lost.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that night after night, that you're taking everyone's best shot, which means that there might be a night where you're playing the Magic and you're getting guns a-blazing from them, and maybe you're gonna take some on the chin from time to time.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
And it's hard to play great all the time, but since December, I forget the date now, they're like 22-7.
Yeah.
Like so they're meeting the challenge. They won at Boston. And that was a shot across the bow right there, saying, hey, here is what we are. Not only just a defending champion, but as relevant this year as we were last on our championship march. And we may see each other again in June. Just, beware. You may have the best record. But anyway, they're going to have so much going on in the West, right? They got the Timberwolves, who won again last night.
Yeah.
And they've got the Thunder, and they've got the Clippers. And the Clippers
oh
my God, it is. It's going to be even more difficult this year than last. I really believe that.
And you've called NBA games since the mid-1980s. Where does Nikola Jokic stack up for you among the great players you've seen?
I've not seen the likes of him before. I could honestly say that when I saw Kobe, I saw Jordan. When I see LeBron, I see a combination of Wes Unseld and Jordan and Kobe and everything in between, because he's just so much bigger and so much more of a brute force, and he does it differently. Jokic, I've never seen, and I did a couple of Sabonis games, Arvydas Sabonis, not Domantas, but his dad, the great Russian player, many decades ago. I did him, and he was a terrific passer. But we saw him at the end of his career. We saw him when the body was failing him, and he wasn't the same player. So Jokic, in the way he passes, is incomparable. His ability to withstand contact and fight through it so effortlessly, and I know he's exerting a lot of effort, but it doesn't look that way, is incredible. He's so much stronger than I think we give him credit for. His ability, his vision to see those around him, understand when the team needs him and when he needs to be facilitating, because he demands so much respect by the opposing defense. Like, it's all of it, Andrew. Like, it's all of this stuff that just makes him one of a kind. And this is my 37th year in the NBA. I've never seen anything like him.
That's saying a lot right there. I mean, how much of a unicorn he is, because I'm glad you mentioned Sabonis because I even remember watching him in like the Olympics.
Yes, right. He was so good.
He should. I mean, you knew then, like if he'd gone to the NBA the next day at his physical peak.
Think of it. Think what he would have been. He would have been one of the greatest centers. He would have been right there with all those different people. So
he was decades ahead of his time.
He was indeed.
He was indeed. But it's now the time for Nikola Jokic. It's also time to talk about where the Broncos stand again. Like I said, Kevin's called a lot of Bronco games over the years, and you called them at interesting points this year because you were at the mic for the 70-point debacle. But then a month.
Sorry about that.
No, but then a month later, when they put it together and started that 5-game win streak, you called the Packers game, the Chiefs game, and then the Monday night game in Buffalo, and then you basically saw the bookend disasters in the season.
Yes.
And then those 3 of those 5 games where they put it together. So when you look back at like the Broncos arc, like what did you see in terms of how they evolved under Sean Payton last year?
Well, the message that Sean gives a team is one of confidence, swagger, believing in the message, listening to the coaching, following the game plan, and all that came out. And clearly, I think the future is all ascending. He's the right guy, there's no doubt. The quarterback in him, you knew from the beginning was going to be an interesting dance. And I don't fault either party. Mm-hmm. Sean wants different things out of his quarterback. Russell has been in the same system for all those years in Seattle, and then he had a coach last year, and now another system this past season. So he's had all these different voices, and it's hard. It's hard, but it just wasn't going to fit. And I think they all know it, and I think they're all honest with each other, and I think that honesty came through as the season went on. But when you saw them begin to win, you thought, who's bending a little bit? I think both bent. I think both leaned over into the other to make it work. And then it kind of got off the rails, and the season ended the way it did. So I would say that I do believe the best is yet to come. I do think he's the right coach. They've got the right people running the organization. I think George Payton is a solid GM. There's a lot of things I like about. They've got a good core. They've got some terrific parts. Phenomenal parts. I name from the line, yes, all of them. All
Quinn Miners.
At every level. I love Miners. I love Miners. So my point is that he's taking kind of over last year, Payton, a team that had a lot of the right parts, now bringing them together. And they've had a couple years where they weren't together, and it takes time. And people probably thought, the number of wins they had, the kind of season they had, it shows you what he can do when they're all kind of on the same page. But it's going to take another off season to bring more like-minded guys in there, figure out the quarterbacks thing, which they will. They'll get it. They'll get it right, and move forward, and they will. The division has suddenly gotten a little bit, Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. We know what's going on in Kansas City.
Yeah.
The Raiders, just by they've got to be more improved. And then I think everyone's thinking that the Broncos are going to be kind of like we thought they were going to be last year, going into last season. They're a team I'm going to watch. I will have no problem picking them to win the division. I think that highly of Sean.
Wow, that's saying a lot, especially if they're resetting at quarterback. And that's another thing, because the progress they made, if they change quarterbacks, is it possible that leads to like a half step backward, even when everything else?
Who are some of the names? I got to be honest. I've been buried in NBA and playoff football.
They are limited on the salary cap,
right?
Because,
clearly,
they're already $20 million over the cap for this year, and then Russell Wilson, move on from him. It's a big dead money number. I guess the way you could describe it is, if they go veteran quarterback, you're looking for the next Baker Mayfield, but who is that? Is it a Jameis Winston? Is it a Mac Jones, who struggled in New England this past year, but had him in the playoffs as a rookie? Is it Jimmy Garoppolo, although unfortunately he struggled with injuries? Or is it the draft? And you've got 3 quarterbacks top of the draft, and Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels.
All are game changers, I think. Yes, I really believe that.
You may not be able to get up there because you've got Chicago, Washington, and of course New England with varying degrees of quarterback needs, which then brings you into the J.J. McCarthy-Bo Nix conversation. And do you love them enough if you're Sean Payton to take them? We
just saw what Purdy's done as a 7th-round pick, right? Yeah. We saw, go back to Brady, you saw all these different picks. We saw Mahomes pick number 10. the point is that if the right guy is drafting, they know talent, and they know where they can find it, and they know, even more importantly, you draft on potential. You always draft on potential.
That would make McCarthy an interesting option because he's the most raw of these guys.
He is, but he's a championship quarterback too, right? In college, he's played on big stages. That guy has been a success. So I think it's safe to say that you trust the process with Sean, and you let him do the things that he's done in the past. That's why you're paying him all that money. That's why you're giving him all that kind of authority. And I think he will answer the call. I really do. I think he'll find. Now, it may not be the next Drew Brees, may not be the next John Elway, but how many of those have we seen in the history of the NFL? I mean, there are not many of them. But I do think he'll find something, and I think he'll do it faster than later.
I want to ask you this because you've obviously covered a bunch of Sean Payton games over the years. Not to reveal anything that's said in those production meetings, but what is his demeanor like when you meet with him on that Saturday?
He's the best. He's so honest and doesn't even allow you to ask a question because he knows exactly what you're going to ask. So, the number one question is, who's going to play, who's been looking good, that kind of stuff, right? So he'll go down the entire roster without us asking one question. And he'll go down the roster. He'll talk about the starters. He'll talk about guys that are going to be inactive. He'll talk about guys that are injured and probably not going to play, guys that are injured that probably are going to play. He'll go down that whole thing. He'll talk about what the philosophy and practice has been that week and how they plan to attack without revealing too much. He tells you all. He's so confident and has so much gusto with the way he coaches that it just comes through in every conversation you have with him. And that's what makes him so unique and so special. I love talking to him. He is just terrific. He's engaging. He's funny. He is Bill Parcells Jr. He really is. And the way he addresses the media, the way he handles, he's Bill Parcells Jr. He's blunt. He says funny stuff. When he doesn't crack a smile, he's great. I love him.
I think it's interesting to say blunt and gusto. Those are attributes I like. Those are attributes I think you like. But not everybody loves those attributes.
You know what? I get it. He's not everybody's cup of tea.
Folks, right?
Right. Yeah, no. Everybody you see, everybody that has a public persona, they rub people sometimes the wrong way. I don't necessarily see it, but I get it. Parcells rub people the wrong way. Some people don't exert much at all, like the late Bill Walsh. He was very quiet and cerebral. People didn't like that. It's just different for everybody. But I do think you need presence, and that you need presence with your quarterback, and you need presence when a guy walks in the room. You know he's something special, and that's what happens when Sean walks in the room.
All right, of course, Kevin Harlan's calling the Super Bowl. How many Super Bowls is this for you now?
Luckily, my 14th in a row and 15th overall.
All right, so turn down that sound, turn up 104.3 The Fan. Kevin's going to have the call like he has for you every Monday night, and of course, calling NBA games on TNT, and you're calling March Madness next month, right?
I am
You're
indeed.
working with Dan Bonner again this year?
And Coach Stan Van Gundy,
okay.
yes.
That was such a great crew.
Well, thank you.
It was great when you three were together with Reggie Miller as well. Dan Bonner's always been one of my favorites.
He's steady, right? He's so steady.
By the way, is that really true that you guys were on an elevator and you said, so when did you get out on parole?
How did you hear that story?
It was in a story on Dan Bonner in the Staunton News Leader a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's a very humble guy, kind of a shy guy in some regards, and he's the ultimate family man and married man. And these older gals got in the elevator with us. We were kind of shoulder to shoulder, and it was quiet, and there was a long way for us to climb up that elevator shaft to get to our floor, and so it's funny to embarrass him, and he was embarrassed. I said, Dan, how was prison? I can't even imagine how hard that was. And the look on the ladies' faces, it was like, oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? But he's such a good-natured guy. We've worked over 20 years together. He's a very good friend.
And are you guys doing Mountain West next month too?
I think they may send us east, and
Okay.
Yeah, they may take us off the Mountain West and put us on the 810. I don't know anything for sure. I love coming to Vegas. We've been to Vegas so much.
And the Mountain West is
loaded
this year, like we've never seen
before. They're going to have like 5 teams, I think, in the field. They are loaded, and they're getting even stronger with a couple teams coming from the Pac-12 too. So no, they're a conference to watch for sure.
So NFL, March Madness, NBA, you know the voice, you know the face. Kevin Harlan, Good to see you,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you so
Great
much. Nice
conversation.
to be on. Thank
Hey.
you. Thank you so
All
much.
right. That's Orange and Blue today. We'll talk to you next time.